design is not an end in itself. Design is an approach to creativity and solving problems. You get more and more and more efficient, and there has to be a point at which there's an end to that.
So we go back. Cheryl's been a cornerstone mentor and member of the Unreasonable community for a long time. Something I'd actually like to ask you that we've never talked about. You live in this world of design, but everybody defines that differently, and it feels like a word that's kind of thrown out there. So what does design mean to you?
Well, I have to take issue with your first statement. Yeah, I do live in a world of design, but I think the only important world for design is being in a world of other people. So design is not an end in itself. Design is an approach to creativity and solving problems, but it's only meaningful when it's applied to real life. Yeah. And so I always say there is no crowd more boring than a group of designers who want to talk about type fonts. So I avoid that. And I think the most exciting times in my life are being with people like this who are doing things in the world, and I get to help them move their peanut forward and help them connect to their mission in a more meaningful way and help them get there.
And this might be a silly question, but why is that important to you?
Wow, that's a very it's a very heavy question. I guess one of the answers is I don't really know. It's just that I don't think I have anything else to do. So I don't think there is anything else to do. And Ida and I were talking today about being from Pittsburgh. Yeah. There is a thing about being from Pittsburgh where, and I've been thinking about this a lot, right, after the election. My grandfather fought in World War I, my father fought in World War II, and I grew up with people who thought it is okay to die for what you believe in. And I never knew what to do with that, right? What do you do with that? There was no, it didn't come up in the same way that I could say, I'm willing to die for this. And so there has just always been that, what do you do with your life, right? And how do you make it matter? And it took, I have a friend who said that my motto in life is, there must be a harder way to do this. Because I have taken the most circuitous route to being able to put that together. So,
can you tell us a little bit about the route?
Yeah, well, one thing first, because I just came from doing a lot of talks in San Francisco, and one of the things that came up for me, again, this is a really remarkable week in the history of our country, that I read once that the definition of integrity is looking inside yourself and finding only oneself there. Meaning there is no conflict. You're not supposed to be somewhere else. You're not trying to be, there's no battle going on, right? And so that's what has taken me a really long time to feel like, there's a whole thing there not in conflict with itself. So I wanted to be a painter. I wanted nothing more than to be an artist, and then I didn't have any money, and I got a job, and I fell in love with business, and then my struggle was, how do you be an artist in business, and how do you be a creative person in business? So that took years, and I figured out there's this thing called design, and I did that for a while, and then I was designing for lots of really amazing people and companies, and I had this, doesn't matter, right? Totally. And so then there was another struggle for figuring out how to align purpose with that. And I got involved with Paul Polak. I picked him up at Aspen Design Conference. He was walking around with some drip irrigation tubing.
For those who don't know
who Paul Polak is? Yeah.
Some don't, though. Some don't.
Okay, no. So Paul Polak is one of my dearest friends. He's 83 now. He has brought 20 million people out of poverty. He creates markets where they don't exist. He developed the treadle pump. He sold 1 million of them to people who make less than $2 a day. He proved that you can create markets. His audience is all the people who live on $2 a day or less. And he's phenomenal. He was a shrink. When he was a shrink, he developed this point of view about treating people counter to the medical point of view. So he talked to doctors and he said, what is mental health? They said absence of symptoms, right? So you get there however you can, you get rid of the symptom. He would talk to patients and they would say things like, when I have a place to live, or when my stepfather stops coming in and beating me randomly in the middle of the night. And he developed this point of view about contextual treatment. And then he went to Somalia and sort of found the thing that he really wanted to do, but he applied that same kind of talk to the person who's going through it, right? So long before anybody invented human-centered design, this was just a natural approach for Paul. He interviewed 3,000 poor people and asked them why they're poor, and they always knew.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I met Paul, and I stuck a note in his suspenders, and I said...
Did you really? Literally?
Yeah, I did. No, I said, I'm not sure what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, I want to help you do it. Because I felt like I had these years of experience of helping, the big corporations in the world succeed, and that that was sort of, boy, let me do this for something I believe in. And then I got involved in pop tech, and I got to hang out with people like Eric Herzman and Ken Banks and Evan Baer and all that. And so in being around these amazing people and trying to figure out how do I apply what I know to help them, that sort of turned into my life in social design.
Yeah, yeah. And what have you learned along that journey of how you apply what you know to help them that we could digest? Because we have a room filled with entrepreneurs who are trying to make a dent in history. Like what are some of those lessons that you could share with us?
So I can tell you what I struggle with, and maybe that'd be great. Will help, right? I struggle now because, as you know, I founded this graduate program, and social design is what everybody wants to do, and everybody wants to change the world. I struggle with a way to bring rigor to this field. I struggle to counter the trendiness of, like I tell my students, do not say you're going to change the world. Like, do not use that language. Don't forget the sound bites. What we're doing has gone on for as long as civilization has gone on, right? It is, you are not inventing it, you are not, and so I struggle to make a real codified discipline out of this methodology, which we call design, which has some essential principles, one of which is co-creation with the people that you're trying to help. Another one is not going in with answers, right? Really going in not knowing and being a medium for what comes out. And another one is letting answers emerge through prototyping. And then the fourth one that I think classic design brings to it, that lots of people leave out, designers have this ability to delight, right?
Yeah.
And so the humor and the entertainment and the let me make you just want to do this, right? Yeah. And want to have joy in a goodness in the world instead of making it feel like eating spinach.
Okay. That's a great point. Question on your second
Not that
point.
There's anything wrong with spinach.
Spinach is delicious.
It is. I love spinach.
But your second point, which was not going in with the answers. So one of the things that I think is different about this program than past programs that you've been a part of as a mentor is, in a lot of ways, we're working with growth stage companies. We're trying to scale what's working and what works. And someone like Sam from D-Light, he's reached 70 million people. He just got the new number yesterday. Once you have something that is working, how do you still have this humble, curious posture, or should you, if it's working at scale, or should you just try to scale it? Like, how do you keep the curiosity as you have proven something that works?
So I find it gets better. Yeah. There are lots of names for it, right? But if you establish a North Star that is really inspiring to you, what happens over the course of 5 years or 10 years is you get immersed in the day-to-day, and you deal with the quotidian challenges of getting there. And one of the ways to bring energy back to it is to sit and think about your North Star and think about how to get there more deeply, how to get there more inclusively. And so the best relationships I've had with clients or companies are the ones that have lasted, for 10 years or 15 years, because you get to go back there and you're not starting out anymore, and you don't have to build a team, and you don't have to prove yourself in some way, so you get to go deeper. And I think that's always there, right? Just as our inner lives are always there to go back to and build on and get in touch with, it's the same with any organization.
So maybe switching gears a little bit, because I think you yourself have had a very kind of entrepreneurial career. And anytime you use that word, people talk about ups and downs and the roller coaster of the journey of constantly kind of pushing the edge. I mean, when has it gotten hardest for you? And can you tell us a story about when you question whether or not you're on the right path?
You mean other than every day?
Other than every day.
When I question whether I'm on the path.
In a deep way.
I don't know that I question whether I'm on the right path anymore, but I question whether I'm doing it right, thinking big enough. I think a lot about, I've gone back and forth, but thinking about gender a lot and not thinking about gender a lot, right? So in the early part of my career, it was sort of, damn it, don't talk about the fact that I'm a woman, right? Because I'm just like anybody else, and that's not true, right? It's not true because women do things. They think about things differently, and it's not true because it's really not an equal and level playing field. And so I think a lot about what I want to be doing and whether I'm thinking big enough, and whether I'm sort of missing opportunities and missing ideas because of my worldview or because of the struggles I put in front of myself. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I'm very clear now, and the graduate program has been a real surprise for me, because when the guy who talked me into teaching first talked me into teaching, I said, "Don't be ridiculous. I'm not going to teach. I don't even like kids." I didn't have children. I didn't have children on purpose. One, because I was, my husband and I were just having too much fun, and two, because I always felt this burden of footprint, right? Like I don't need to reproduce myself. And here I am, and I have 47 people that I am so worried for and committed to, and so. Irony, right? So I think a lot about whether I'm doing the right, big enough, doing what I should be doing for all of that and the other communities and people that I work with. But never lack of clarity on whether that's what I should be doing.
So a question we explored in the UK was. And it might be not the right question, but the question was, when is enough enough? And how do you know? And I just love your perspective on that question.
Honestly, I don't know, because I'm tired, and I'm tired all the time. And I'm tired all the time. I'm tired all the time because I think I still travel and I still work like I did in my late 20s. And, so far I'm getting away with that. But... I don't know the answer to that, because this week made me want to not leave the country, but made me want to just curl up in the fetal position and I don't know. I don't know.
Have you? Do you have ways to check in with yourself to know when it's too much?
Yeah. So, So for much of my life, I was paid to be creative, meaning, and that's such a specious expression, right? But in consultancies and you are categorized as a creative, and so you're like, okay, come up with some ideas for the client, because we've got $20 million riding on this, so come up with something clever. And so part of that is I am so aware of the creative process, right? I know the mood I need to be in, I know what I need to do when I have to do that, and I know how to deliver that, and you learn that. And so you really get in touch with yourself in sort of subconscious, right? I know how to get in touch with that and all that stuff. So I feel like I am really in touch with that river that we all have inside, and when you need to stop and let it flow, and so I don't ever endanger that.
Yeah.
So I take care of myself physically. I'm being out in nature is really rejuvenating for me. So yeah, I'm not at risk of losing it in that way.
Yeah.
But you get more and more and more efficient, and there has to be a point at which there's an end to that, right? And it's like, okay, I give up. I've spent myself.
Yeah. Maybe going a little bit into the creative process.
Is he always this intense? He just
I don't know. I'm curious.
This is like Elizabeth Warren with Trump, and I am going to be up your ass every day of your life. God bless you, Liz Warren.
Well, maybe this one could be fun, but getting into the creative process or the creative posture, like. What have you learned that we could take into ourselves or into our teams? Because we constantly, there are moments when you need to be creative, when you especially want your team to be creative. And how do you help people step into that?
Well, there's a piece I wrote actually for Unreasonable called "Putting the I Back in Team."
Yeah, it's a great title.
Yeah. So there was a piece of research that basically showed that like group brainstorming does not get you better ideas, right? And that we all have this place in ourselves. And I remember reading. Some Harvard professor came up with this, like, hey, I've discovered the creative process. So what everyone knows about the creative process is it is so simple. You fill your head to the point where your head is exploding or your head is vomiting. Whoever said as long as your teeth are closed, it doesn't count. You take in every single bit of what it is you're trying to solve, and then you go for a run or you take a shower, and you give your subconscious time to work on it, and stuff occurs to you.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I've done it with large groups of people. I've done it with know-it-all fashion editors from Condé Nast, right? Yeah. And everyone has the same effect. You dive deeply into what it is you're trying to solve, and then let your subconscious take over, and things bubble up. And then there's a process to figuring out what to do with them. Yeah. But it's really that simple.
Yeah. So that is, you take, if you have a team, maybe, and you're trying to work on a problem, and you fill it up, and then you say, just go on a walk for an hour and come back?
Well, you have to be sensitive to the team and who's in it and what the dynamics are, right? Yeah. But the principle is, there needs to be somebody. I love this expression. Somebody said, "Not all time is equal." Right? There's time for taking things in. There's time for actions. There's time for sitting. And if you become sensitive to that and you connect with your senses, right? And that in a team that has to do with connecting with the team's senses, right? What they're feeling. But those elements in the right order always lead to insights.
So, last question.
Coleman is shaking his head.
Coleman's shaking his head?
Yeah.
last question.
Easy's on. I got lost in your story.
Oh, yeah. I was like, where's the time?
2 minutes.
So, how... 2 minutes long. Yeah, it's great. So, you share this at the table, but how long have you been married?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, you want me to tell what our secret is?
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No.
Oh.
Sorry, I thought there was a secret on your watch. And I was
this is a new it's a new Apple Watch. I'm so annoyed. Like Donald Trump is on my watch.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. I don't know. See if somebody can help me turn it off.
Yeah, we gotta get him off.
Not all time is equal.
Not all time. But yeah, what can you share? And this is a selfish question because my girlfriend's in the room. But can you share with us? Can you share with us some of? I know this is a cheesy question, like the keys to a long-term relationship. But what have you learned to be in a marriage for 40 years?
Well, I married a really wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And I'm crazy about him. And we said in the beginning that we would get to decide every day whether to still be in it. That there was not. But, at a certain point, you have to say, this relationship and this life and the people that are around us I'm not going to break that promise. Right? I will not betray that trust. And so there are days when it's shitty and there are days when it's great. But for the most part, we have fun together. And it's really about joy.
Yeah.
And it is about putting someone else ahead of you or caring about someone not kind of more than you care about yourself. I mean, just, but it's easy to do that, right? That hasn't been a struggle. Yeah.
Love it. I think that is a wonderful note to close the fireside on. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you.